Hi, I'm Chad with Move for Guitar. This lesson is from our series Music Theory for Guitar. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can use the modes of the major scale to solo over a static half diminished chord. First off, if you like the diagrams for everything in this series, including the diagrams for this lesson, you can download our free e-guide, Music Theory for Guitar. And this e-guide will be something that you can study and use as a reference for years to come. And like I said, it's free, so there's no reason not to just go download it. This is part 5.16 from our series, Music Theory for Guitar. If you'd like to go back and start at the beginning, you can click the link on the screen. So in the last two lessons, we looked at how to solo over a static major chord, and then the next one we looked at how to solo over a static minor chord, and I showed you your mode options for both of those. In this lesson, we're going to look at a half diminished chord, which is a minor 7 flat 5. And we could look at how to solo over a diminished triad, but that's not a common thing you're going to run across, a diminished triad. By far, it's going to be most common to run across a minor 7 flat 5, which is half diminished, or a fully diminished chord, which is the diminished 7th chord. But we're not talking about fully diminished chords in this lesson because we're talking about major scale modes, and the diminished 7th chord doesn't come from the major scale. So what we really want to look at is what modes can be used to solo over a minor 7 flat 5. And if you just play popular type of music, this isn't a chord you'll probably ever run across. It's very unlikely that it's in a song that you'll play. But if you ever get into more advanced blues or if you get into jazz, it's definitely a chord you're going to run across. And it's important to understand what mode from the major scale you can use to solo over it. And there's options outside of the major scale for soloing over this chord. But right now we're talking about the major scale harmony, so we're going to talk about what mode from the major scale you can use to solo over this chord. So to solo over a minor 7 flat 5 chord, you can use Locrian from the major scale. And that's because a minor 7 flat 5 is a root flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. The only mode that has a flat 5 in it is the Locrian mode. All the other major scale modes have perfect fifths in them. So the Locrian mode is the only one that builds the diminished triad, which you should know at this point if you've come this far. And like I said, a diminished triad is not a common chord to run across for soloing over. The most common by far that you would see from the Locrian mode is the minor 7 flat 5, which has the diminished triad plus the flat 7 in it. And that's a much more consonant sound when you throw that flat 7 in than the diminished triad. And it is pretty common for jazz or more advanced blues to run across a minor 7 flat 5. And if you're using modes from the major scale to solo over that chord, Locrian is your only option. So that means if you were soloing over a G minor 7 flat 5, you would use G Locrian. And G minor 7 flat 5 is spelled G, B flat, D flat, F. G Locrian contains those exact notes so that all those chord tones are in the mode of G Locrian. And then your avoid note is the A flat, which is the flat 2nd, and that's because of the distance between it and the G is a minor 2nd. But this whole scale is pretty dissonant, so it's not going to sound like using a major mode or a minor mode that are pretty consonant sounding. This is a very dissonant scale overall, so it might be a sound that you don't even like no matter how you use it or what notes you avoid or whatever. And like I said, if you just play popular music, it's very unlikely you'll even run across this chord. So now we've made this chart for the chords that you can use Locrian over. And of course you have the diminished triad, but I said that's not very common to run across just by itself. The minor 7 flat 5 is by far the most common you'll see, or the minor 11 flat 5 would probably be the next most common, but still the minor 7 flat 5 is the most common that you'll see, and each of the options for each of these chords is Locrian when you're talking about major scale modes, because they all contain a flat 5 in them, and Locrian is the only major scale mode that has a flat 5 in the scale. So those are major scale mode options for soloing over static half diminished chords. Go ahead and move on to the next lesson where I'm going to talk about mode options for soloing over chord progressions. And be sure to download the e-guide, all the diagrams are in there, and be sure to subscribe because we add at least one new lesson every day.